So today we're going to go over Unit 3, Day 6 notes, which is writing equations from two given points. Now at the top, if you notice, I gave you an example of a problem where we're supposed to write an equation when we're given a slope and a random point, which is the lesson we did back in Day 4. Basically, today's lesson is exactly the same as Day 4, but instead of them giving us the slope, we have to find the slope to begin with, like actually solve for it. So let's start with number 1. The directions state, write a linear equation for the given points. So they give us two ordered pairs, 3, 4, and 5, 8. So just like before, the first thing we need to do is find the slope. So we need to find the letter M, okay? The only thing we have is two ordered pairs. And we know how to do that, right? So, you know to create a table. So my first order pair is 3, 4. My second is 5, 8. So now I can just find the slope. Remember the pattern of both sides. And then you will do the right side over the left to find the slope. Okay? So what is 8 minus 4? 4. 5 minus 3? 2. So it's 4 over 2 because the right side over the left side. So 4 divided by 2 is just 2. So my slope is 2. So now that I have the slope, which is 2, and using my one of the ordered pairs, it doesn't matter which one you use. You can use the 3, 4 or the 5, 8. I'm just going to use 3, 4 because those are smaller numbers. And just like the lesson that we did earlier this week, we are going to plug it into our y equals mx plus b. So your y is 4 equals your m, which is 2, times your x, which is 3, plus b. Now 2 times 3 is 6. Bring down your plus b equals 4. And then you got to jailbreak the 6 to the other side, which becomes a minus 6. So I'm left with b equals 4 minus 6 is negative 2. So I found my letter B, my M and my letter B. So now that I have the M, which is 2, and now that I have the y-intercept, which is negative 2, I can create my equation, which is y equals mx plus b. So instead of the M, I'm going to put 2. And instead of the b, I'm going to do minus 2. So there's my equation, y equals 2x minus 2. Yeah? Now, from this point forward, I'm about to show you a technique that will allow you to get your calculator to create a table, to create an equation for you. Okay, and if you have a calculator, this is the method I would like for you to use. But obviously, if you don't have a calculator, you're gonna have to know how to do it using this method. Now, let's go back to step 1 where we had to find the slope, where we have our table. Now, if they ever ask you to write an equation from a table from two ordered pairs, you can actually use your calculator to allow you to tell it to create an equation for you. Now, if you need to rewind and pause the video so you can see the steps over and over again, that's perfectly fine. Just know that the more you use this method, the easier it's going to be, and it's going to save you a lot of time once you get the hang of it. Now, just know that it will seem like it's a lot of steps, but really it's not. So if you need to create an equation, the first thing we need to do is tell our calculator what the information is. Okay? So we need to input the table into the calculator. So first thing you need to do is click Stat, and it takes you to this menu. Now you see automatically we see the words added. Click Enter. So if you have anything under the table, you need to scroll up where you're highlighting either L1 or L2, and you need to click Clear, Enter. That will automatically clear the table for you. Do the same thing for the next column. Make sure the L1 or L2 is highlighted. Click Enter, Clear, and then Enter. So now that your table is clear, just know that column L1 is the same thing as your first column, which is the X's. L2 will be your y's. So now let's type in our table. Let's start off with the first column with the first number. Our first number was 3. Click 3, enter. Then the next one will be 5, enter. You have to put the columns first, the first column and then the second column. Now let's move on to the second column. My first number is 4, enter. 8, enter. Now that I have my table, now I need to tell the calculator to create the equation for me, okay? So now I have to click Stat again. Now instead of clicking Edit, I'm going to scroll over once to calculate. Now I'm going to scroll down to option number 4. Option number 4 says line regression. So that means linear regression, which is the linear equation, okay? Now, click enter. Now here you're going to have to click enter 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it gives you your equation. And as you can tell, they don't use the letter M for the slope. They use A. And you can see the linear equation y equals 8x plus b, which is just y equals mx plus b. So they're telling me that my slope is 2 and that my y-intercept is -2. Going back to what we did, is that what we got? Yep, that's exactly what we got. So I know that I have the right equation. This method also works great for problems where they ask you to find the y-intercept or find the slope of 2 ordered pairs or a table. It will save you a lot of time and it will guarantee that you won't get it wrong, okay? So of course, if you have a calculator, I prefer for you to use this method from this point forward. If you're in the inactive part, obviously we're gonna have to do the old techniques, okay? Of finding the slope and the y-intercept and writing equations. So for today's notes, we're going to work them out both ways. We'll start off by working it out by hand like we did up here, and then we'll check with the calculator to make sure that we're getting both methods. So let's move on to number 2. We have 2 ordered pairs and they want us to create equations. The first thing you need to do is set your table up. So -2, -9 is my first ordered pair, and then -3, -6. Now, remember the right side over the left. So -6 minus -9 gives me 3. -3 minus -2 gives me -1. So the right side is 3, the left side is -1. So if you simplify that, it gives you -3. So that means your slope is -3. Now, to find the b, I'm going to use that slope and one of the ordered pairs. I'm just going to use -3, -6. You're going to use -2, -9, it really doesn't matter. You get the same answer. So y equals mx plus b. Remember, this is your x, this is your y. So y is -6 equals -3 times -3 plus b. So now, -3 times -3 is 9. Bring down your plus b equals -6. Now I have to jailbreak the 9 over to the other side and it becomes a -9. So I'm left with b equals -6 minus 9 gives me -15. Or sorry, -6 minus -9 gives me -17. Oh, I'm wrong again. -6 minus 9 actually gives you -15. So let's correct that. Okay. So your slope is -3 and your letter B is -15, okay? So now that we have the slope, which I said was -3, and now that we have the letter B, which is -15, your equation is y equals mx plus b, so y equals -3x minus 15. Now, let's use our calculator to see if we get the same answer. So, go to Stat, Edit. Remember to clear your table, you got to scroll up to L1 or L2, click Clear, Enter, and then Clear, Enter. Now, the left side will be -2, enter, -3, enter. Now, -9, enter, -6, enter. Now, go to Stat, scroll over to Calculate, and then go down to option number 4. Click Enter, and then enter 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you can tell, my slope is -3. My B is -15, which means I did do the correct equation. Now, let's move on to the back. We're going to skip number 3, number 4, and number 5, and we're going to go directly to number 6. Now, remember, I have 2 points and they're asking me for the equation. So first thing I need to do is find the letter M, the slope. So remember, I have 2 points, so I have to create a table to find the slope the old-fashioned way. So now let's find the pattern. -2 minus 7 is -9. 1 minus -5 is 6. So the right side over the left gives me -9 over 6. So if I simplify -9 over 6, it gives me -3/2. So there's my M. So now let's find the letter B. Using the M, which we said was -3/2, and using one of the order pairs, I'm just going to use 1, -2 as my order pair. I'm going to plug it into my slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. So the y is -2, the m is -3/2, and the x is 1. Don't forget to bring down the +1. So -3/2 times 1 is -3/2. Bring down your +1 equals -2. Now I need to jailbreak this -3/2 to the other side, and it becomes +3/2. So I'm left with B equals -2 plus 3/2. And I end up with -0.5, which is the same thing as -1/2. Okay? So you have the option of leaving it as a decimal, which is -0.5, or leaving it as a fraction. I prefer a fraction, so I'm just going to leave it as -1/2. So now the last step is to create an equation. So we know that the m is -3/2 and the letter b is -1/2. With that being said, I'm going to use the slope-intercept form, and I'm going to plug in my m and my b. So y equals -3/2 x minus 1/2. Okay, and there's my equation. Now let's go back with the calculator and let's do stat edit to see if we get the same answer. Okay, don't forget to clear your table. Now, your table was -5, 1, and then 7, and -2 on the second column. So now go back to stat, calculate option number 4, enter, 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 enter. And I got -1.5 and -0.5. Obviously, my stuff is as a fraction, but you should know that -3/2 is the same thing as -1.5, and -1/2 is the same thing as -0.5. So that means I do have the correct equation. Okay. Of course, if you have any further questions about today's lesson, please do not hesitate to ask me tomorrow in class.